guys, this is Crazy Kevin here, and I'm here with UFC fighter Johnny Munoz. Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, good, man. Can't complain. Johnny, it's been a little bit since we've seen you. How you been feeling since your last fight, and how have things been?
I've been good, man. Just recovering. Had some injuries since the last fight. Um, we had to recover the nose, like my shoulder. Like I had a lot of injuries. So, uh, all fighters, we always go through battles, injuries. So sometimes, especially during camp, they flare up a lot. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, when you're not fighting, it's good to take advantage of the recovery. So it's what I feel like I've been doing, but I feel good now. And yeah, so I just want to get back into fighting and been working a lot of different things as well.
Nice. Now, I know one thing you mentioned too is philosophy is a big key for you. What are some good books you like to read about philosophy?
Yeah, philosophy. Where did you hear that one? Where I said that at?
Podcast or something you were doing with somebody else, and you mentioned you like to
Yeah,
read.
yeah, philosophy. Like it's I don't know. I feel like it's a big thing for me. You know what I mean? I like reading a lot of different philosophy. And when I say it could be anybody, like it could be you say something, but like books in particular, like Marcus Aurelius Meditations, that's a classic. Real great book to read. I highly recommend it. Art of War, Sun Tzu, great philosophy in that one. Book of Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi. Uh, I would say those are probably my three top picks. There's other books as well that are great, and there's other books I would like to get into. Uh, I don't know. I think philosophy could really shape a person. You know what I mean? I think sometimes in life we're too focused on little things, but we need to follow our philosophy and don't disrespect it. And what I mean by that is like if you live by a certain philosophy, follow it. You know, don't be a hypocrite to yourself. And I feel like I try to do my best every day to do that. And I feel like if sometimes if certain things don't fall in line with what I believe in, like uh, I can't be associated with that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that definitely makes sense. I know Art of War, that's definitely a good book that I've checked out myself. So definitely some good recommendations I'll have to look at. With that being said, I know in another interview too, you mentioned that success helps put the pieces together in your life. Do you think you've achieved that success yet? And if not, what do you think you need to do to achieve it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how we measure success. I feel like as far as my dreams go, I haven't succeeded in my dreams yet, and I feel like I still got time to do that. And but as far as other things like school, certain things I said I was going to do, I've done that. Like I went to college, graduated, got my master's degree, I got a BJ black belt. So it's like even though like my dreams like to be the best in the world. I know it's a hard thing to say. Maybe it's cliche to say, but when I say like to be the best in the world, it's like okay, like if you like this is another thing. Like this might be philosophical as well, but I like to look at different people in their crafts. You know what I mean? Like it could be anything, but why is that guy a legend? Jimi Hendrix, you know, he's a musician. That guy was a legend. Why do people still talk about him today? If you talk about baseball, Babe Ruth, like why is he still talked about today? Or like, you know, warriors, like Achilles or people like that. Like how are these people still remembered? What separated them from other people? Muhammad Ali in boxing, you know, he's talked about whatever. Pro wrestling, you know, I grew up on pro wrestling. Why are guys like, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin? What separated those individuals? So like I've seen all like these different individuals study like their behaviors. They all have one thing in common, and they put their dreams before themselves and before everything. You know what I mean? I think it's something very powerful, and not everybody could do that. But I'm starting to see as I go through this journey, it's like, man, like I've always thought I was a selfish person, but maybe I got to be more selfish. You know what I mean? And to really hit that limit, and I think that's what separates those kind of people. And it's something I'm still searching to do and be able to perform at my best, which I feel like I haven't been able to do that. There's been certain fights I feel I've entered that like mode, but I feel that mastery where you're able to master the art of a legendary performance, a classic performance. I think that's what separates uh, legends from the regular people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with the weekend coming up, with it being right now WrestleMania as well, I'm from Philadelphia. If you were to stage and have one pro wrestler to bring you down there as well, what wrestler are you taking?
Like to wrestle with?
Oh no, if you was walking out of the cage just to support you, maybe it's like a coach or something.
Ooh, I don't know. My favorite wrestler of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I would probably say him. I know he's retired, but I would say him.
What match are you most looking forward to at WrestleMania?
Uh, I'm interested in the Cody Rhodes, the Roman Reigns thing. I could see that. I don't know, like go different ways. Like I wonder which way that's gonna go. I think a lot of people probably want to see Cody Rhodes win, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get blindsided.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been back and forth on that one for a while, so I definitely don't know as well. Um,
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, too, it's been a little bit since we've seen you in the cage. We were talking a bit about injuries. When do you think next time you think you'd be back in there?
Uh, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm hoping by summer, honestly. Hopefully by summer, get a fight going, and just really get back to being me, and then getting one step closer to fulfilling everything I want to do. You know what I mean? I love fighting. I love martial arts. I love learning. I like performing. The last few fights, it's been like uh, not in front of a crowd, if that makes sense. Uh, Obviously, there's a crowd, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like when you fight, like you're trying to be in arenas, you know what I mean, with people. And but yeah, man, so like I just want to really get back to it, and see how far I can go. I really want to just pursue my dreams and do this. I know we're all out for that. We all work hard and do it, but I think there's something to separate certain people from other people, and that's what I'm really looking to find.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's definitely some good advice there. With that being said, too, I know another interview you mentioned you take business very seriously, and you mentioned saving money is very important. I'm only 24 years old, and I guess other young people that are out there watching, what is the best advice out there to kind of save your money and I guess to help set yourself up for the future long term?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the main thing is this is something like you just don't learn in school. I never learned any of this in school. I was like just taught about like the basics of like money or investing, saving, just from like, my father obviously is like biggest role model, biggest example in my life. But I think just for all these young guys out there, honestly, like it's hard, man. Whatever it is, especially it depends what state you live in. Like I'm in California. California could be a tough state to make it because it's so expensive here. But you just got to start out and grind. Don't try to look for like, I want that nice car, I want this, I want that. Fuck all that. You know what I mean? Whatever job you got, that's what it is for right now. Save your money. Like the best advice for me, whatever it is your income is, you got to figure that out. Okay, what are you making a month? You know what I mean? You got to be able to separate that into percentages, like whatever. Like maybe I need whatever 50% to live on, another 20% this, if that makes sense. That's how I feel like I've always managed my money, and to set myself up, you know what I mean? And also like for fighters out there, like if you're fighting, I see a lot of fighters that make the mistake, maybe they make it to the UFC, you start getting paid more, and then they start buying jewelry, cars, all this stuff that it's not necessary. You know what I mean? I mean, like, what do you really need to live? Like, you need a house, something affordable. Like, just start off low and work your way up. The more fights, and then you start growing from there. But don't go all big right out the gate. Save your money. Try to get an investment guy. Know the right bank accounts, because there's so many bank accounts that screw you over. SoFi Banking is a bank account I recommend. And yeah, and so your money could grow. You know what I mean? Banks are a ripoff, dude. If you're gonna put your money in a bank, don't let them charge you. Charge them.
Yeah, no, very nice. No, that was definitely some good information. I'll definitely have to check out SoFi. Now, another thing you mentioned too, a while ago, you said you like to play Call of Duty. I was curious, which favorite Call of Duty?
Well, okay. So to be honest, I haven't even played this last Call of Duty. I've been slacking, man. My favorite Call of Duty game of all time is Black Ops 1 for sure. But I've been behind on Call of Duty. But the last stuff I was playing all the Warzone stuff. To be honest, I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2. I know it's an older game, but I got back on it, and I feel it's one of those video games. It's a classic, just the way it's set up. The only downfall is I feel like that game had so much potential, but they kind of let it just die out. There's so much things they could add on to that game, but that game is probably one of my favorite games, and I think I like it so much because it has an American touch to it. You know what I mean? I'm very pro-American. I'm proud to be an American, and I feel like when I play that game, it's very American to me.
Now, how often do you even get to play video games with training all the time?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, but there'll be times like maybe like in between training sessions, I want to get my mind off things, so I'll just play 20 minutes, whatever. Or sometimes on a Sunday, I don't have much going on, want to recover. I'll do some of that stuff to get my mind off things. And yeah, so I don't get to play as much, but when I do, it's cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely a nice thing to chill after training with. With that being said, you have a lot of matches in King of the Cage as well as the UFC. How are the UFC and King of the Cage similar?
How are they similar? Well, okay. Well, one thing I could say for sure how they're similar is I think the experience as far as fighting with the crowd. And what I mean by that, so all my fights in King of the Cage, I've always kind of fought in sold out arenas, if that makes sense. So I was always used to performing in front of a crowd. There's an arena out where I live. I remember I fought there, I don't know how many times. A lot of my fights there in California is the Toyota Arena, which is in Ontario, California. But there had been at least like, I don't know, maybe 8,000 people in attendance to those fights because that arena was like huge. And it just had that UFC feel, if that makes sense. I remember when I fought in Texas in the UFC, I walked out, I was like, man, like this is like, it felt similar. Like I was used to that already, you know what I mean? But now I was just doing it in the UFC with the full crowd. And I would say that's how they were similar as far as like, the crowd. King of the Cage knew how to sell out their arenas and put asses in seats, obviously like UFC does.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned with a lot of people coming to the fights. Do you like to bring a lot of people to your fights, like family-wise, if it's kind of local?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when it was local, so I'm not sure if you noticed, but so when you start out fighting, how you make money in fighting a lot of times is you got to sell tickets, right? So like I would sell a lot of tickets, so I have a lot of family members, I'm American, but I'm Mexican, you know what I mean? So Mexicans, there's so much of us, cousins, uncles, aunts. So like a lot of my family members would go, teammates would go. So I would at least, every time I fought in California locally, I would have like at least 500 people there supporting me in the crowd. So yeah, I don't mind it.
Now, when you're selling tickets, if somebody pulls out of the fight, how does that work with all your tickets?
Yeah.
You use all the money and stuff? How's
Okay.
that?
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience with that, man. So coming up, there's a lot of dudes I was like supposed to fight, like former UFC veterans, uh, just a lot of guys, upcoming guys, but the fights never went through, and always something happened, like where they pulled out like 2 weeks before. I remember I had a 1 week, the week of, and it's very stressful because you're like, man, I sold all these tickets, and the promotion obviously they don't want to lose the money. But I'm also like, well, if I'm not going to fight, I'm going to refund these people. You know what I mean? It's only fair. They're there for me, not because of you. So it would always be a dispute right there. Obviously, the promotion didn't like it. But luckily, that put a lot of stress on them, and they were always able to find a replacement because they knew if I didn't fight on the card, they lose a lot of money and they'd have a lot of empty seats in the arena. So luckily, I was always able to get a last-minute replacement, but it was always stressful because you were training for a Pacific guy, and then you get this new guy, or you don't know, has nothing to lose, and just throwing haymakers in there.
That's what I've been wanting to ask as well too, because it's like it seems like a lot of these fighters that like when they're on the regional scene, they're on the cusp of getting ready to do the UFC. A lot of these guys they pull out last second like that. Is that a normal thing on the regional scene for everybody, or is that just because you guys are right there on the UFC cusp and they're a little nervous?
Yeah, I think I feel in the regional scene it's somewhat normal. Uh, Especially like the lower levels. I have amateur teammates. It's crazier in the amateur scene. Like you get pullouts the day before. Like it's just wild. It's like you might have a guy, but it's not even reliable. But like in the regional scene, it does happen a lot. And Yeah, it just sucks. I think a lot of guys too, they don't like taking too many risks in the regional scene, which makes sense. You have to be smart because maybe they're 10-0, maybe they have a good resume, and they don't want to take those risky fights, and which makes sense. I know a lot of guys. I don't want to mention names. They're like in the UFC or top 10 guys that are Bellator champs. You know what I mean? They were in the regional scene. Like I've talked to those guys too. They didn't want to take risky fights in the regional scene because they knew they were so close to get into a certain point. And also their mentality was like, okay, why am I going to fight another dog like me in the regional scene when we're only going to make like $2,000? And when you look at it that way, it's true. You know what I mean? So I don't blame them, but I just think if you're going to take the fight, take it. But if you're not, don't even sign up for it. You know what I mean? Like, and this is one advice I always give to like teammates. I always tell them like, hey, you're not making a lot of money right now in the regional scene. There is no money right now. So you got to be smart how you take your fights. Don't look at it like you're being a bitch or anything like that. You got to be smart with your career. The goal is to get to the UFC or a big show like that. I mean, if you look at all the Russians, they do it. I mean, look at the guys they fought. I mean, just look at their records, and they do whatever it takes to get there because it counts in the UFC. It doesn't matter what you did before.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to ask. Why would these guys accept the fight? I mean, wouldn't that kind of hurt their reputation? Like, hey, this guy's pulled out a couple times. Maybe be careful of booking a fight with him.
Yeah, I mean, I try to look at it as a fighter from a fighter's point of view. I think a lot of fighters were afraid to say no sometimes. Obviously, there's some guys that don't give a fuck. They'll say no. But I think sometimes, I mean, it could be like they don't want to say no, so they'll accept the fight. Hey, I took the fight. And then maybe what happens, I got hurt in camp. You know what I mean? So they feel like I don't look that much of a bitch because I got hurt. I mean, that's just one thing I try to look at because I train with so many like guys like in TJ, Mexico, and California. And every time somebody's hurt, they never want to pull out of their fight. But I always just tell them, like, you're hurt, dude. You should pull out, whatever. And but I think sometimes guys would do that. There's so many fighters I've seen do it. Like they'll take a fight knowing damn well they're going to pull out of the fight. But they'll just say, I got staph or I got hurt. So at least they could say, hey, I didn't deny the fight. Save face.
Really interesting. Yeah, I definitely never thought about that stuff. But so with that being said, I know in the beginning of the interview when we were setting everything up, I mentioned that I'm a Taekwondo instructor. I've been training for about 20 years now, and I've been teaching for about 6 years. And at my location, I have about 150 students at my school.
Nice. Are you the gym owner?
I'm one of the teachers there. My boss runs the school, basically.
Nice.
That being said, though, with all the students I have, what advice do you have to get them to come into the gym every single day?
Yeah, I think so. I've been involved in jiu-jitsu since 5 years old. I'm an instructor, a coach as well at the gym, my father's gym. So I just noticed, like with the students, you got to find that like they have to be able to glue to you. Because there's some guys that teach, maybe they don't have personalities or nothing like that. I feel like I just try to be myself, and I feel like they're kind of glued to that. 'Cause I'm hard on them, you know what I mean? I'm not one of those guys like you see those videos on Instagram. You see those dumb coaches like they're hitting their students and shit with a stick or something. That's like an ego thing. I don't know, a macho thing. But like what I mean by hard on them, like, so there's so many different students, and I'm sure you're aware of this. So you mentioned 150 students. Everybody has different goals. You get like a younger guy. Maybe this guy wants to fight, or maybe this kid's getting bullied, or maybe you got older people. They're just trying to get into shape. So you have everybody with different goals. But I always try to teach them the philosophy that, hey, at the end of the day, you guys signed up here to learn martial arts. At the end of the day, martial arts is self-defense. Hopefully you do not have to use this in a real life situation. But if you do, you guys are going to be prepared. And that's how I'm going to get you guys prepared. So the way we train is like, we go hard. I try to push them to their limits. Like hey, you got to be ready. Like, you know what I mean? Somebody attacks your family. You got to be ready in that moment, whatever. You can't quit. We're rolling. We're training. Don't quit in the roll. Finish every round. Afterwards, you can take a break, take a breather. And I think they respect me for that. You know what I mean? Because I push them. I get a lot of students, like they'll message me like, hey, thanks for pushing me. Thanks for whatever. I would say, hey, I just want to bring out the best in you. And I feel that's how I'm able to do it. I just push them. I'm not an asshole. I'm not a nice guy either. but I'll get on them like, hey, like don't quit. You could give more. You could give more. And I always try to push them to compete as well a little bit in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, hey, maybe you're afraid to compete, but do it. Do at least compete one time every rank. You never know. You might like it. You might get your ass kicked, but hey, at least you could do it. And because the average person out there, they're not doing that. So if you do that, just win or lose, it just separates you from the rest of the people.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good advice. And like you mentioned too about not being too nice, not being too strict, you know, you definitely have to find that good balance of like trying to be friendly with the students and also not being too friendly where, you know, you start losing control of them, they're not going to work as hard. Yeah, I definitely thank you very much for that.
And also, another advice I could give if you're a gym owner or you're a gym instructor, don't hit on the chicks. Never do it. Don't be a scumbag.
Fair enough. Yeah, that was a good advice. That being said, Johnny, last message to the fans that are going to be tuning in watching this video.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Just last message to the fans that are going to be watching.
Yeah. I just appreciate all you guys for supporting me. Check out this podcast. You know what I mean? Hopefully you could take something from it. I feel like as individuals, we should always give something back. And I feel that's what I try to do. Obviously, I'm out on a journey of my own. Everybody's out on their own journey. But anytime you give something back, you never know who you're going to inspire. You're going to motivate. You might light that fire. You might help create the next legend in this world. And I've been touched by many people in life, like with their words and all that stuff. It's impacted me. And so it's allowed me to fulfill my journey. And I just hope I could do the same thing one day. And I hope people could look to me one day as their key to success.
Absolutely. No, John, definitely some good advice. And John, thank you again for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate you. And we're looking forward to what you do in the future with your career.
Hey, bro, I appreciate you for having me. I'm glad we're able to do this. So let's go.
In the future. Thank you again for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good weekend. Go to WrestleMania.
Let's go. Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, man. All right. See you later.